Hey, hi everyone, and thank you for joining this PizzaCast. I'm Jonna Krishnowski, Channel Manager for Vertical 6, and I'd like to introduce you to the presenters. Both Tricia King and Brian Mulligan bring decades of IT expertise to help you navigate today's digital challenges efficiently. Tricia King is a Director of Client Success at Vertical 6, and she will be discussing managing security with a hybrid workforce. She brings over 25 years of expertise working in information technology. Through her career, she has mentored and led call centers, teams, served as a technical architect and product manager in both SMB and enterprise organizations. She holds several technology certifications, such as Security Compliance Specialist, is a HIPAA privacy and security expert, and in her current role at Vertical 6, she oversees the client success team and works with our managed service clients to provide technology strategy, security guidance, and innovative business solutions. Tricia's primary goal is to enable client success by ensuring their technology is aligned with their business goals. And Brian is a client director with Catalyst Group, which is a vendor-agnostic IT consulting firm that helps clients simplify the management and optimization of their telecom services. Brian will be discussing common challenges and how organizations can save money. He's worked for national carriers and IT integrators in leadership roles for more than 25 years. Brian is passionate about advocating for his clients and helping them leverage the correct technology at the right cost. This webinar is going to be recorded and sent to everyone after the session. If you have any questions during the webinar, please put them in the chat so they can be addressed. So now, without further ado, here's Tricia King.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for spending your lunch with us. Today, I want to talk a little bit about what Zero Trust is, and then we can talk a little bit more. Brian's going to talk about how we can fund some of your security initiatives that you may have going forward. We're going to focus a lot on Zero Trust. And I know Zero Trust really seems to become more of a buzzword, but it's actually an approach and it's not a product or a one-time project. And when we look at the history of cybersecurity, our traditional cybersecurity model is built around a perimeter defense approach. And the idea was to create a real secure boundary around the network and then just assume everything inside is trusted and everything outside is not. This approach today is really outdated and it's not effective anymore. And this is because we've changed the way we work. You know, some of this is since COVID, but also a lot of organizations have moved more towards cloud computing and mobile devices. So this kind of blurs the boundaries of traditional network perimeters and poses new security challenges. Employees can access corporate data and applications from anywhere using any device, which increases the risk of data breaches and identity theft. So attackers can exploit vulnerabilities inside of that network infrastructure or use phishing and malware to bypass perimeter defenses and then gain access to sensitive information. And because of this, a new approach to cybersecurity is really needed that's more adaptive and able to detect and respond to threats in real time. And this is really where Zero Trust comes in. So Zero Trust was actually introduced in 2010, and it's a security paradigm shift that focuses or shifts the focus from the network perimeter to individual users and devices and data. So it assumes that nothing, whether it's inside of the network or outside of the network, is trustworthy. And it requires continuous verification and authorization for every interaction. So it's based on the principle of never trust, always verify. So when we look at the perimeter-based model, this really relies on firewalls and VPN to create a secure boundary around the network and protect it from external threats. Anyone who's inside of the network is assumed to be trusted and can gain access to any resource, while anyone outside of the network is assumed to be untrusted. So this has a lot of limitations and challenges because of cloud computing in mobile and remote network environments or remote work environments. So the perimeter itself is actually blurred, and it's more applications and data are moving to the cloud, and users are accessing them from different devices. They could be home devices or business devices in different locations. So they could be on the road, they could be working from home or in the office. So the perimeter-based model also doesn't account for internal threats like compromised credentials, other types of insider attacks, or lateral movement. These all bypass the perimeter and can cause damage on the network. The perimeter-based model can actually degrade the user experience in some cases. So they might have to deal with some cumbersome authentication processes and network latency issues as well. So Brian, can we get the next slide? So Zero Trust addresses these limitations and challenges by using a different approach. It doesn't depend on a single perimeter, but it actually is creating multiple micro perimeters around each resource, such as an application, a database, or a file. It doesn't assume any level of trust based on the location of the user or resource, but it's going to identify and verify the identity in context of every single request. So it's not relying on static rules, but it has dynamic policies that it enforces, and then continuous monitoring based on real-time data and then behavior that it's seeing. In doing it that way, it provides several benefits. So you get improved visibility, there's a reduced surface attack, and it really enhances the user experiences. So one of the key concepts of Zero Trust is one of never trust, always verifies. And that means no user device or application is automatically trusted, even if it's sitting inside of the corporate network. Instead, every single time there's a request for access to a resource, it's verifying it based on multiple factors. It could be identity, the context, or the level of risk. And doing it this way, it's going to prevent unauthorized access, and it really limits the potential damage of compromised credentials and devices. Another really important concept is least privilege access. So this means that users and devices only have access to the resources that they need to perform their specific job functions and nothing more. So this minimizes the exposure that you have, and it reduces the attack surface on the network. And then a third concept is microsegmentation. And so what this means is that you divide the network into smaller segments. So each segment has its own security policies and controls. It also allows administrators to isolate and protect different parts of the network, such as applications, data, or users. And it's doing this by creating real granular boundaries within the network. So this is going to really help prevent lateral movement of attackers, and it can help contain the spread of malware as well. And then the last concept that's really crucial, and is that of continuous monitoring. And so that means that the network is constantly being monitored for like different anomalies within the environment, threats and breaches. Right. So this continuous monitoring allows administrators to detect and respond to things that are happening in real time, which really will reduce the impact and even the duration of an attack. So these continuous monitoring tools will leverage data and analytics, and it's going to give you better insights and feedback on the performance and security posture within the network. So the next slide. So if we talk about the main differences between Zero Trust and then more of a perimeter-based security, the perimeter-based security model really relies on the network boundary. This assumes that everything inside the perimeter is trustworthy, and again, everything outside is potentially malicious. And so the focus is really on securing entry points into the network, like firewalls and VPNs. It also, usually on your firewalls, once somebody is authenticated and they come into the network, there's this default allow policy, which gives them access to the network unless it's been explicitly denied, which means your users and devices and applications probably have way more access than what they need. So if you have a user that's going to use a VPN to get access to a specific file, in doing so, they probably have access to the entire network at that point. Also, these perimeter-based security technologies are not really designed to protect the network boundary as far as things like zero-day attacks, ransomware, and malware. They're just not good at it. And so when you introduce an era of cloud computing, mobile devices, and remote work, you know, this really impacts what you're looking at and how you're securing your network. So it's not even accounting for the human factor, right? So you have people who have legitimate access to the network. You know, they can actually pose a threat, whether it's intentional or unintentional. A lot of times it's completely unintentional, but your end users get compromised and they can become a threat within the environment. This perimeter also isn't going to be really effective at preventing any type of lateral movement. So when an attacker comes in, it might start on one of your employees' laptops, but then it's going to move from there laterally, right? So they're going to begin to search the network to find different vulnerabilities, and then they're going to use them to elevate their access privileges and then move on to better targets. So with the zero trust security model, like that implicit trust in the network is not there. So every request in session has to be verified regardless of where it comes from or where it goes. So it's really focused on securing data and resources rather than the network. It also follows a default deny policy, which means that users and devices only have the minimum access required for the tasks that they're performing. And, you know, so at this point, if a user needs access to a specific file or a device needs to connect to a specific server, it should only have access to those things. So it really is relying on different types of technologies that are designed to protect the data and the resources. So we're looking at identity and access management, multi-factor authentication, endpoint detection and response, and cloud access security brokers. So these technologies are, most of the time, they're simpler and easier to manage. And part of this is because they leverage cloud-based services. There's also AI integrated into it and a lot of automation. So they're way more effective at detecting and responding to some of these advanced threats because they're really using behavioral analysis, anomaly detection, and threat intelligence. So if we look at a common cyber attack scenario, like phishing or credential theft, so you can have an attacker who sends a fraudulent email into a user and they're pretending to be a legitimate sender. So the email contains a link or an attachment, they click it, and it redirects the user to a fake website. So it's either going to install malicious code onto the user's device, or it's going to install malicious software. So at that point, they're using the user's credential or device to access the network. And this is where they get in and steal and damage data and systems. So in a perimeter-based security model, this scenario is really most likely to be successful because with those credentials or by using the device to access other resources, they're completely bypassing that network boundary. And once inside of it, then they can really exploit the fact that, there's, once they're in, they're allowed in, and there's nothing that's really stopping them from moving laterally within the environment. in the zero trust security model, this is going to be most likely prevented or contained because this attacker, they can't easily access the network using the user's credentials or device. Because even if they click on or open a malicious link or attachment, this attacker still has to go through several layers of verification and validation. So you've got multi-factor authentication in there, you have endpoint detection and response. So there's a lot of default deny policies. You've got the network segmented, so they're not actually able to go in and do strong vulnerability scans and things. So it really limits the access to data and resources. And then on top of that, when you have these automated detection and response mechanisms with the continuous monitoring, those are based on real-time and dynamic rules, and they're way more successful in stopping attacks. Next slide. So Zero Trust is really aiming to prevent data breaches by minimizing the attack surface and reducing the risk of lateral movement. So when you're looking at implementing this within your organization, there's probably three tool sets that you're looking at. So first is you really want to take a look at your current security posture. So you need to go in and you need to look at where are the gaps and vulnerabilities on your network and within your application. So you want to map out what you have for assets, users and devices, and then really kind of understand and determine the level of trust they need and the amount of risk that they introduce into the environment. So you need to take a look at your security policies, your controls and tools, and really see how they might align with the zero trust principles. The other thing that's really important to do is to go in and really take a look at your high value assets. So what are your most critical systems? Where does your most critical data live? And what are the applications that you really need to protect? So this might include classifying your data according to its sensitivity and value, and then really looking at encryption and how you might protect those different areas. And then also how network segmentation can help reduce the risk in there. And then you want to also look at your permissions, like what is the least amount of privilege within every application and system that you have that you can grant a user for them to complete the tasks that are part of their job. And then once you've kind of gathered all of this information, the final step is to kind of build an implementation plan. So this involves defining priorities, setting goals, and you really want to establish timelines as well. So, and this does include like where are your key challenges and opportunities for your organization and what solutions are going to interact and be best for your environment and your specific needs. Every network's a little bit different, and how people use networks is a little bit different. So your solution might look different than even another organization that's, the same as or kind of does the same thing that you do. So the goal on this is, you want to monitor and measure your progress and performance and then adjust your plan. But the goal on this is to just have continuous improvement as you go along a zero trust journey. So next slide. So just to recap a little, zero trust is not a product or a tool. It's a mindset. And it's a strategy. It's a way of designing and managing security in your environment that assumes no one and nothing is trusted by default. It also means that you have to assume that your network is already compromised and that you're monitoring and responding to suspicious behavior. So zero trust can help improve your security, your compliance, and even efficiencies from an administrative and an end user perspective by reducing your attack surface, preventing breaches, and complying with regulations. So it's going to really help you optimize some of your resources. And when you're looking at a world where, a lot of users are working primarily remotely. This is a way that you can actually introduce security that's going to make a difference within your environment because it's not focused on the perimeter. At the same time, we do recognize that, adjusting your IT budgets to include security can be difficult, especially if you're at a midpoint in your budget cycle. So we wanted to work together with Brian because Brian can really talk to you and tell you about how you can save costs. You can shift part of your budget and redirect that at some of your security initiatives.
Thanks, Trish. So hi, everybody. Brian Mulligan from Catalyst Group. Here today to talk about a really fun topic that nobody ever wants to manage, which is mobility, mobile devices, smartphones, tablets. And one of the challenges, or some of the several common challenges that we see in the marketplace today, and these don't have to be your challenges, is rates constantly changing, mid-cycle billing changes, mid-cycle user changes, having zero visibility into the account. So hard to read bills, no cross-carrier visibility. So if you're using a variety of carriers, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, and a lot of times you're getting incomplete carrier reporting. We also know that IT staff time is very limited. So calling customer service becomes a problem and you have very limited resources to do that work. These are just a number of the things that we see in the marketplace today that cause a lot of heartburn, along with managing mobile fleets. What do we know? We know that 42% of clients have had incompatible plans that resulted in multiple data pools or individual lines not sharing data, causing overages and increasing the monthly billing costs. Again, going back to no visibility or zero visibility, 23% of the lines have old or incorrect names because you just don't have the time to get those updated. The cost centers are allocated incorrectly. So, when you're billing back to different departments, there's issues with where the budget is coming from. And 6% have assigned to or wrong or terminated employees. So you're getting billed for services that actually aren't in use. What do we see on the customer service side is that since 2019, a call with AT&T wireless has increased by 175%, and Verizon has increased by 225%. I would like to argue that your time is much more valuable than that to sit on calls holding just to do billing reviews. So the goal of today's presentation is really to talk about how can you save money with minimal impact. And when I say save money, it's putting money back in the IT budget by effectively managing your mobile fleet, but also taking that money and forklifting it into other initiatives such as security that Trish was talking about. So the mobile program that we discuss, there's no change to carriers, no change to SIM cards, no change to devices, no change with how you actually procure your devices. A minimum of 10% savings is guaranteed. On average, the average savings on wireless expenses is approximately 27%. Even those who are using a TEM or a third party are seeing upwards of 32% in savings. And all of these costs are funded through a revenue share model in cost savings. So you're not just paying another bill. So what is a wireless assessment and how does it work? So there's really 4 stages to the wireless assessment. On day 1, we're going to set a benchmark. We're going to look at your data and we're going to analyze it against 35 plus different components to find opportunities at the micro level, which is at the individual user level, and at the macro level. Within 2 weeks of us reviewing your bill, you'll receive a clear, detailed report and an itemization of exactly what you have and what the opportunity is for optimization on your account. 30 days from day 1, once you approve the changes, and all of those changes are up to you to approve, we'll make those final changes and share the final savings with you. The best part about this is you don't receive an invoice or any charges until those savings have been validated against your actual bill. So until you actually see the savings on your invoice, typically within 1 billing cycle, and that's when an invoice would be generated. Thought I'd share a couple of case studies because I think it's important. Many times people say, well, I don't have enough mobile devices to even consider doing this. You do. So it is worth the time and worth the exercise because it costs you nothing. But three different scenarios that we've worked with. One was a water treatment engineering company who saved about 45% of their monthly invoice with AT&T and Verizon, 221 devices. A healthcare organization who exclusively used Verizon with 135 devices saved 51% or almost 52% of their monthly bill. And then a small, I wanted to give a full picture. So a small retirement community with 31 devices saved 54% of their monthly invoice. So certainly significant savings for these customers, and again, able to pick up that budget and move it into other IT initiatives. So how do you do it? How do you get started? And we really, a Catalyst Group, like to keep it simple. Simply contact us to discuss a mobility assessment. Provide your most recent wireless invoice and device report, and we're happy to sign NDAs as needed. Schedule a meeting to discuss preliminary findings, and then decide ultimately for you if a mobility audit is right. I think it's definitely worth the time and definitely worth the exercise, and who couldn't stand to save some money in the mobility area, which always seems to be increasing daily. So I'll leave it there. I'm hoping that this has been helpful for you folks, and we really wanted to stick to the timeline, be cognizant of your time. But in this last slide, you'll see contact information for Catalyst and Vertical 6. And John, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So I want to close out this session, this webinar, with letting you know that Vertical 6 understands that implementing Zero Trust, it can be challenging, complex, especially if you have limited internal resources and a diverse IT staff or IT environment. So that's why we're here to help you with our expertise and solutions. So we can help you assess your current security posture, identify your gaps and risks, also design and deploy a Zero Trust architecture while providing ongoing support and guidance to help you achieve better security compliance and efficiency with Zero Trust. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Like I said earlier, you will be receiving this recording, and our contact information will be on the last slide. And want to thank you all for spending your lunch with us. So I don't see any questions. I guess we'll end it here, but thank you all for joining, and thanks, Brian and Trish. Really appreciate the information.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right, thanks. Bye.